So you're telling me that YouTube has made memberships available for this content on the SSW network?
Yes, they have.
I'm guessing they haven't watched anything here.
That's a little out of bounds.
Okay, that wasn't very nice.
Right,
but,
thank you.
So tell me, first, how much does it cost?
It's $2.99 a month.
$2.99 a month.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
That's not $299.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No.
$2.99.
Correct.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
And what are they getting?
Well, they're going to get things like early access to some of our videos.
Access.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Almost all of your content is live streams.
Well, that's true. You're also going to get some behind the scenes stuff.
Okay, some behind the scenes
and emojis.
content.
Let me show you some of these emojis. They're really cool.
Oh, and cute little emojis.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that one. It's like a little drink.
Yep.
So that way when you guys do your goofy ass toasts, people can share them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Yep. You're also going to get a membership bag.
Oh, and a membership
Yes,
badge.
a membership
Very
bag.
nice.
Yep.
Very nice. And
Yeah.
is that me?
Yes, that is you.
You're using my image as a membership badge?
We are. We're
Well, I am completely behind this program
Yeah, I
now.
thought you
Absolutely.
might be, yeah.
But listen, if you're watching at home and you've decided that you want to spend $2.99 to support some crazy Star Wars fans,
Right.
well, this is the place to do it.
Thank you.
Not only will you get behind the scenes access and shout outs and
Right. All the
some
good
other
stuff.
stuff,
Yeah.
you're going to get a badge with my image.
Yes.
What else could you ask for?
Exactly. So you're supportive of this whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Become a member today. Absolutely.
Do it now. Well, welcome to ATGLive, your Thursday night home for all things Star Wars. I'm one of your hosts, Pete Fletzer, and I'm joined by this guy over here once again, as I am every Thursday night. Well, most Thursday nights, Nick. It's life. It gets in the
most
way.
of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. Nick, how are you? How are things?
I'm doing well, and I'd say that I'm most relieved by the fact that I see that Clanker is back in the studio.
Yeah.
But I'm also really relieved to see that Clanker's restraining bolt is firmly in place.
You can't let that guy go anywhere.
You can't let him get anywhere near the controls. So to be in that proximity, I like that, there's some measures we're taking. But other than that, I'm great. We've got an exciting show tonight, and we're going to have some fun as we do most every Thursday night.
Yeah, we do. Tonight we have a really special guest. We have Steve Sansweet and Ann Neumann from Rancho Obi-Wan. They're going to join us in just a couple minutes. We're going to switch up on the order of things. We're going to do our sort of opening stuff that we normally do. Then we'll have our guests, and then we'll do the news after that tonight. Because they're going to share some news as well, so that seems to make a lot of sense. But Nick, we before we get to the toast, I do need to take just a moment to talk about this week's fantasy sports ball. For those of you who've been following the show for the last couple weeks, we're doing it's sort of like fantasy football, but we've selected characters and we're letting the internet decide who their favorite of them are, whether it's a Jedi, or then the next week it might be a Sith, it could be a Rebel pilot, it could be whatever. And this week it was Smuggler. And I thought for sure, Nick, that this was going to be another victory for you. But let me share these results. I'm glad you're sitting down. We had Dr. Afra versus Lando Calrissian, which was your call. Dr. Afra, of course, our good friend
Kelsey.
I was thinking Kirby Puckett, and I know that's not who it is. It's Kelsey Puckett, Lando Calrissian, and which your pick, and I picked Hondo Inaka, and Hondo won.
I can't believe it. I have
to say, I am stunned as well. I thought for sure this was a Lando week. I thought for sure this was going to be yours. But the best part about it, though, is it's given me a little bit of a lead here in the standings.
Wow.
I'm 5 points up.
4 wins.
4 wins. So if we do end up tied, I've got that going for me, which is nice. But Nick, any comments on this week and this week's matchup?
I do have a comment, and I was going to go camera 2 for this comment, but I think I'm just going to get it over with right here on the screen.
Yes, I'll
I'm surprised. I'm surprised that Hondo won, but I have to take a moment to talk to my friend Kelsey. Kelsey, we had a rough patch to start this fantasy sports ball season. I may have talked a little bit of trash a couple weeks ago. Good-natured trash. That's what we do here. And I thought, okay, it's going to be fine. She's going to end up coming back. She's going to get some wins. Things are going to start swinging her way. But what I see you've done instead is you've decided to hit me where it hurts the most. And you've somehow managed to put a curse on my Atlanta Braves, who, as we all know, I'm competing in a bet with Pete, the Braves and the Phillies. And over the course of this last week, we have slipped from second to third, behind, of all teams, the Mets. I mean, what is happening in the world?
It's rough.
We're now 1 game out of the wild card, 9 games out from the Phillies. And Kelsey did that to me as punishment. So, Kelsey, I'm sorry. Can we call off the dogs? Can we need some late season magic for the Braves? I know you have power. I know you work at ESPN. I'm saying I'm sorry. This is my mea culpa moment.
I'm gonna say this. I'm not gonna make any friends with this, and I know that there's some people who are friends of the show as well who are not gonna like this, but I'd rather see the Braves in second place than the Mets, to be honest with you. So, so very, very interesting.
Yep. I stepped in it, and it hit me where I didn't expect it.
Well, before we move on from this, I do have to show this week we have this matchup. We have the Bristol Banthas are playing 000. That's not C3PO you're going to be voting on this week. That is 000 from the Dr. Aphra comics. It's sort of a double back-to-back Dr. Aphra week. Nick selected the winner, R2D2. There's no way R2 doesn't win this week. And I selected Chopper because I'm a fan of the little wise guy. And I think
let's just be honest, if we're looking at these 3 droids on the screen, that's Murderer's Row legitimately. Like all 3 of these droids,
right? The body count is
stuff.
Body
sky high.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, we're gonna do what we do every week. We're gonna do a little toast, and then we're gonna get to our guests. So. They catch me dancing every time.
Every time, yeah.
Yes.
The music plays, that piece of toast with the word Star Wars on it, and here we are to do a toast. We've got 2 this week, and they're both sad, and everybody knows of one. But before I get to that one, we also lost this week John Cassidy. John Cassidy is a Star Wars comic book artist, big part of the Marvel run, has done so many images and graphics and covers that I know, even if you don't know that name, you've seen his work. There's the comic, one of the Star Wars #1s when Marvel, got back a hold of Star Wars a few years ago, with Luke on the front and the yellow jacket and the lightsaber and all the characters around. Such a fantastic artist, a style that I really, really like. In fact, last summer when we were out of town, we were at a thrift store and I found unused the comic book version of all his covers, but it's like the adult coloring book version. So they're not filled in. And that's a good zen when I need to be quiet and get away from people moment to, grab one of those and just doodle in it a little bit. So the loss of John Cassidy certainly hits, especially for comic book fans. I saw our friend Heather Antos post about the fact that, he was such an influence on her early work and teaching her to draw and so many cool things like that. So that's a huge loss. But the other one, of course, is James Earl Jones. We lost James Earl Jones this week, 93 years old. I mean, an icon. And Star Wars alone is iconic, but the amount of things that he did that affected all of our lives. I mean, I forgot there's so many things that one of the biggest ones is the one I forgot, which is This Is CNN. Like, the voice that all growing up, we all watched. I love baseball and Field of Dreams and Terrence Mann and Mr. Myrtle and the Sandlot. And, so many things that he did. And I wanted to play just a tiny bit of this clip because we all know, the impact he has, on Star Wars, who Darth Vader was, but I'm never not just blown away when we see the footage of the David Prowse, voiceovers in costume on set. So here's a quick clip I pulled from TikTok.
So the voice on the set, the voice was delivered by David Prowse, who was in the suit.
Start tearing this ship apart piece by piece until you find those tapes. Find the passengers of this vessel. I want them alive. You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away.
And it just wasn't what the character needed. So George eventually picked James Earl Jones.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take it away.
And the breathing is me breathing.
It's just so powerful. And that's not shade to David Prowse, because Darth Vader wouldn't be who Darth Vader is without his physique and the way he moved. Everything the walk, what he brought to that character as well. But that voice is just, it's iconic, and it's something that truly stays with all of us. And when you read so much more about the story, you hear what happened. James Earl Jones was brought in. He did 2 hours of voiceover work in the first Star Wars, and he was paid $7,000 at the time, which is the equivalent of $36,000 today. Yep. Which, again, if I could get 2 hours of work for $36,000, I'll take it.
Sure.
But also initially his name wasn't going to be on it. And, that got changed later on. And it just became such an iconic thing. And it's interesting, too, that the permission and the stuff has been set up through his family and his estate last year. In fact, I guess part of the connection to the Kenobi show, or maybe it was Ahsoka. I don't remember with the flashbacks, but for them to be able to use his voice going forward, if they, need to, with some of the computer technology that we have available. So that's an enduring legacy as well. So it's obviously very sad to lose someone as brilliant as he was, that did so many different things. Growing up as a huge David Letterman fan, one of my favorite things was when Letterman would do top tens, and it would be things that sound cooler when, James Earl Jones says them, and it was like, where's the beef? And, I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, like all the just very David Letterman humor. But James Earl Jones was always so game to come in and do that kind of stuff. And
I mean, he even did, I was going to call it Breaking Bad, but that was not it. It's the nerd show. What is wrong with my brain?
Big Bang.
I could say he was Breaking Bad, Big Bang. I wasn't that far off. I mean, it's a completely different story, but I mean, he was good about it. He had a sense of humor about it. And my favorite thing is when he says George Lucas wanted to have a deeper voice, so he picked a kid who was born in the South, grew up in Michigan, and had a stutter. And it's wild. And it's when you played that little clip, just the intensity. Before we move off this, what's your favorite Darth Vader line as delivered by James Earl Jones?
This is going to sound so dumb, but I think it's the one that I say the most, which is the moment in Jedi when they're fighting and he has the realization about Leia and he goes, sister. Every time. That one, him saying sister that way, that's just the one that sticks out in my head. And also I have you now in the trench run, in Star Wars, when he's got him in the targeting side.
The funny thing is when you realize, like, he didn't have a lot of lines.
Not that much,
but every single thing that came out of his mouth was so perfect. My favorite is impressive, most impressive, because like you, I probably use that more than anything else. But
in your real life.
And the thing too, much like John Williams, you can see it when you hear it. And I grew up with the Story of Star Wars album, and hearing his voice bring that to life was so wild, so great. So
great. Well, I'm going to raise my glass tonight. Everybody, if you have a drink, we're raising our glasses, our toast for the week, to John Cassidy and to James Earl Jones, both huge losses for Star Wars, but their legacy will absolutely live on. So cheers. And happy Star Wars.
Happy Star Wars. Well, we are going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to bring the news into the show a little later. We're going to get straight to our guests. We have some fantastic guests tonight. We have Steve Sansweet and Ann Neumann from Rancho Obi-Wan. They have some exciting news about this year's gala, and I'm just excited to catch up with Steve. I haven't spoken to him in quite a while. So we'll be right back with more ATG Live. are back. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you're joining us for the first time, make sure to hit that like and subscribe and all the things you're supposed to do. It sounds much better coming out of like a 20-year-old person who's got the YouTube presence, but just do it. Like, subscribe, share, whatever. Tell a friend, tell a family member, buy a billboard, do what you got to do. And hey, if you're interested, we have just opened up membership here on the ATGLive on the SSW Network YouTube channel. You can join for as little as $3 a month. It's different than the Patreon. So if you're already doing that, we appreciate that. But if you want to do some more stuff, you can do it here. It doesn't change your interaction with the show at all, other than you get some, you're going to get some additional content, a little bit of extra content. You're going to get some fun little emojis and things. We'll see them in the chat when you guys pop up. But consider that if you'd like. But without further ado, Nick, I'm going to hit the bumper and let's bring in our awesome guests. We are excited to have Steve Sansweet and Ann Neumann with us. Steve,
hey guys,
how are you?
Doing well, thank you. And Willie.
And Willie.
And Willie.
Hi, Willie. How are you?
I'm Willie's emotional support human.
Steve, I was so excited that you were going to be on the show. I decided to grow a beard to try to continue to emulate and be, you know, as much like you as I can be.
Well, it's 2 steps removed from Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Right. 1 step removed from Obi-Wan.
Right. Which, you know, congratulations to Ewan McGregor today getting his Hollywood Walk of
Star
Fame.
on the Boulevard. Yes, indeed. And he can come back once a week and scrape off the chewing gum.
That's the privilege that comes with that, I suppose.
That's right. The Dion upkeep.
Well, Steve, and thank you so much. People have heard of Rancho Obi-Wan. Many people are members. Many people who are fans of our show are members of Rancho Obi-Wan. But maybe give us just for those that may not be familiar with Rancho Obi-Wan, tell us a little bit about this amazing museum.
Rancho Obi-Wan is a non-profit institution that houses, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, the world's largest Star Wars memorabilia collection. We've got somewhere over 400,000 separate items in the collection in a 9,000 square foot museum. And we have an off-site storage facility, which used to be really open with lots of space on the shelves. And now you have to sort of walk in between things to find stuff. But it's great. We opened to the public in the late 2011, and we do guided tours with docents that last 2 to 3 hours on usually just on Saturdays. We do 1 or 2 tours on Saturdays. And in order to book a ticket in advance, because we sell out tours, especially in the summer and the early fall, it's ranchoobiwan.org, and you can buy tickets there. And you'll hear that URL repeated numerous times this evening.
I think we're already booked through November. So if you're planning on coming, it'll be November, December.
Wow. Do you find like, so you say they book up immediately? How many people go on a tour at once?
We keep the tour to 12 people. Okay. Because we want to make sure everybody can hear and see as the docent is leading them down the aisle. Really, it's an experience to hear the stories that are attached to the items. It's not just looking at a bunch of action figures, but there are always funny stories or revealing stories behind what you're seeing. And there's a lot more than just toys in the museum, in the collection.
Yeah. And it is a nonprofit, which means that you do fundraising to keep things going. Steve, I was fortunate to see it. I don't even know how many years ago. It was before it was open to the public. Yeah. And in order to keep this thing going, because it's interesting, because Star Wars memorabilia is, you know, you said toys and that's, and I think that's sort of the initial impression when people first start to think about it. But once you start to dig in and realize it's a part of Americana, it's part of global culture. It reaches the, you know, the action figures. I have a couple of the old ones back there somewhere, and like it's just such a part of who I would say, I was gonna say we, but I mean it's like I said, it's deeply ingrained in the culture. So you keep it up through this nonprofit organization, and in order to do that, you have an annual gala. And do you want to tell us a little bit about? I mean, through other means, of course, there's memberships and things, but you do an annual fundraising gala, right?
So we actually haven't had a fundraiser since 2018 for various reasons. So this is our very first one since 2018, and it's our very first fundraiser that we're doing not at Rancho Obi-Wan, and we're doing it at the Museum of Pop Culture, which is an amazing museum if you've never been there. It was originally a museum dedicated to Jimi Hendrix and music, and Paul Allen started it.
Paul Allen was the benefactor, and then Paul got interested in science fiction, and so started up buying more props and costumes and things like that. And so it's become a very well-rounded museum, and is taken the name of the Museum of Pop Culture. And it's located in Seattle, Washington, where conveniently two of our board of directors live, and who have huge collections themselves. And part of the ticket, as an add-on ticket, you can actually get to see the collections of Gus Lopez and Lisa Stevens and Vic Wertz while you're up in Seattle.
Yep. And Mopop also has several exhibits with Star Wars items in them. And we are bringing a special exhibit of Star Wars guitars.
Yes.
Keeping the theme of Mopop, since they also have a very impressive exhibit on all kinds of guitars. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's got a lot of space and a huge screen that we can show giant videos on. And we're going to have food and drink and costume characters and photo ops. So we would love everybody to come join us.
Yes,
100%. And it's so neat. And I love that you mentioned that about the guitars, because Pete and I are both musicians and Star Wars fans. And we talk all the time about the cross section of, nerds and music. And of course, Mopop is the perfect place to bring that together in the Star Wars universe. And we've seen guitars over the years that, pictures of them surface online, the one that looks like the Millennium Falcon, the one that looks like, all that kind of stuff. So when I saw that was a part of the display that you guys were going to have up there, it's absolutely, right up my alley. And I can't wait to hear how it turns out. I'm not going to get to make it, but you have so many components to this event. And that's the other thing that I was going to get you to talk about. Like you said, you've got music, but you're going to have a live and a silent auction. Talk a little bit about the auction, the items that y'all are going to have up for sale.
Well, one of the live auction items is a Boba Fett guitar. It's licensed by Fernandez,
Japanese manufacturer.
Yep. And along with it, Britt Lightning from Vixen will be giving you an online lesson on how to play that Boba Fett guitar.
Nice.
I think I knew that myself.
Yeah.
That's right.
I tried to take up a guitar when I was young, and my fingers kept breaking on the strings.
Yeah. So you've got that as one of the items. What else is available to bid on?
There's a wine tasting for 8 at Skywalker Ranch at Skywalker Vineyards. So if you've always wanted to go to Skywalker Ranch, Skywalker Vineyards is a beautiful place that it has a wonderful statue out front. It's called the Icon. And you get to taste, they make delicious wines.
They do.
And George Lucas now has vineyards in Northern California, Italy, and France. And you get to taste some of those wines. So it's a great occasion. We've had this once or twice before at our live auctions back in the day, and people have gone in together and split it. You split it, the cost in half, and won the auction.
Wow.
So we've also got a silent auction with all kinds of donations from artists who have been so supportive of Rancho Obi-Wan. Mark Ratz, Joe Caroni, Walt Crowley. There's a lot of them. You remember who else has sent stuff? Lots of stuff.
Lots of
There's
stuff.
actually a list, an evolving list on the webpage.
And we'll be updating that list as we get more items in for the auction. We've got some wonderful signed prints from the late Ralph McQuarrie.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Signed photos from Colin Cantwell, the late Colin Cantwell, who was the guy who came up with the models even before Ralph McQuarrie was hired and based some of his concept art on the models that Colin Cantwell built. So that's a huge item for the auction.
That's fantastic.
Without a doubt. Well, we want to remind everybody, go to ranchoobiwan.org. You can find information about the gala, about the museum. Keep checking it out. Like you said, you're going to keep updating it. And tell us when the event is. I don't think we said that yet. We said it's in Seattle.
It's October 5th. It's in a less than a month.
Why are you here? You have things to be doing.
Anne is sitting by the computer 17 hours a day, I think. There's a lot to do, but we've got a lot of great volunteers. Seattle area is a hotspot for collectors. I mean, two of the best and biggest collections in the world are there. As I said, Gus Lopez, who was a former vice president of Amazon and has been on the board of directors for quite a while and is vice president of Rancho Obi-Wan, has probably the best and largest collection of Star Wars costumes and props.
And cereal.
And cereal boxes.
And cast and crew items. He has just the most amazing collection. And Lisa and Vic over the years have put together an equally fantastic collection that includes a lot of prototypes of toys and flat art, packaging art, so many incredible things.
They have their own theater, and they also have the Cantina bar from Star Wars Celebration.
That was built for StarWars.com for a celebration a couple of celebrations ago. And we were offered it and couldn't find a place to fit.
We'd have to build a new building.
So,
nobody called me. I would have.
You have a barn, Pete?
Actually, I do.
Those goats don't need that barn.
The goats don't need the barn. They can live as. So, Anne, are you a collector also? You almost have to be, I would imagine.
I collect by proxy.
Okay.
My bank account.
Yep.
No, I mean, I had when I was a kid, I was 9 when Star Wars came out, and my sister was 6, and we had, the action figures and trading cards, and those fell by the wayside into adulthood. But then I started recollecting again with episode 1, and that's where I discovered Steve's Tome Arts Guide to Star Wars Collectibles.
Mm-hmm.
And we met up at a San Diego Comic-Con in the 2004. And I was at a table at the Spaghetti Factory, and I said, I've just lost my number 2 person. And anybody want to volunteer to inventory a Star Wars collection for free? And for some reason was the only one who raised her hand. And so
she knew what she was doing.
She came out for a couple of weeks and then decided that she would spend 6 months inventorying the collection. And that was how many years ago, Anne?
Gosh, 18 years.
Oh my gosh.
Each time I ask Anne, it's another 2 years added.
I know, it just seems like 100 years.
So Anne is now president and chief executive officer of Rancho Obi-Wan, and I'm chairman and founder. I still buy
and collector.
I still buy things for the collection, although a lot less than I used to. I don't have a steady large income coming in because journalists, when I was at the Wall Street Journal for 26 years, are just dramatically paid huge amounts of
right.
Sure.
And executives at movie companies outside of Hollywood are just showered with greenbacks.
Clearly. Not clearly.
No, not
well.
But it would be nice.
It would be very nice. It would have been very nice.
Right.
Well, and speaking of those journalism days, I want to throw it back for a minute, and I'm going to kind of drag Pete into this too. But I know the story because Pete and I have been partners doing this show for several years now and friends for a couple of years before that. But because of the journalism that you were doing, because of Star Wars Galaxy magazine, Pete got hooked up with you. started right. And honestly, I think that if it wasn't for the phone call he made, and I know he's going to tell this story to connect up with you, we probably wouldn't be sitting here getting to have this fun conversation, because it led him
So
down
are
a
you
path
blaming me or thanking me?
I'm 100% thanking you, sir, because we've had quite an amazing journey so far, and to get to talk to you and to get to talk to the other guests we've had as a part of this podcast. But Pete, kind of jump in here, because this is such a fun story, but it leads us really to having the show.
Steve, I don't know if I've ever told you this story. I know I've told it on the show before, but this was back in '96, I think it was.
When I just first joined Lucasfilm.
Right. Yep. And you were doing the you were touring Star Trek conventions, showing them pictures of the special edition on the slide. You literally, I think you had a slide wheel, right? I mean, you literally had the slide machine and
slide machine and some film.
Right. And some film. Right. And I had what I believe may have been the first Star Wars fan website. It was called Echo Base, and it was like a GeoCities website. And because there was no official Star Wars site at the time, people began sending me emails saying, "Where's Steve Sansweet going to be? Where can I see him do this special edition present?" And I had no idea. I was just, I was making flaming logo GIFs and things like that. And I was, so I decided to just, I'm going to call Lucasfilm and I'm going to see if maybe they can get me Mr. Sansweet's schedule. And so I called, because that's what you did. Didn't email, called, and I said, "Hey, I'm very interested. I'm getting a lot of requests for Steve's schedule for the special edition presentation." And they said, "Okay, yeah, please hang on a second." I figured they were just going to come back in a second and say, "Okay, where's an email address I can send it?" But next thing I know is I hear on the phone Steve Sansweet speaking, and I was floored, because I have it right here. This book was like my numero uno favorite Star Wars collectible book. And, I was a reader of Star Wars Galaxy magazine, which of course was only about 4 or 5 issues in at the time. And to be able to speak to you, and then next thing you know, you were like, "Why are you asking me this? And tell me about your website." And next thing you knew, I was sending you out some samples of some of the work I did. And I was very fortunate and honored to be asked by you to help out with a couple of the issues and a couple of the articles that were there. And of course, also your very generous invitation to join you for a day at Skywalker Ranch around that same time, which was an incredible experience. And, I don't know if I've told you the story or had the opportunity to really thank you for it, because it was an amazing experience, and it changed my Star Wars trajectory and the trajectory of a number of things I ended up doing. So
got another one.
Yep. Got another one.
I know everybody knows it deep down, but just to say it out loud is that Steve is really the father of modern Star Wars collecting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say fandom, even because of all of your writing and your appearances at conventions. And Steve is exactly what you see is what you get. He's just the best kind of guy.
Oh, thank you.
So yes, we should all thank Steve.
That was a wonderful job for 15 years. And then I went back in 2017 to help out for a little while. And now they have a full-time fan relations person and exhibit person. And I was doing all of that by myself. I can still remember when I had a meeting with my boss, who was the head of marketing and the president of Lucasfilm, and said, I think we need to do a floor exhibit at San Diego Comic-Con. And, well, how much will it cost? And I pulled the number out of and said, "Oh, maybe $500,000." And people went, "Ah!" and then I had hired Mary Franklin, who was there on a temporary basis at least, and Mary said, "No, more likely $1 million."
Oh.
Then we figured out a way to be able to have a big pavilion and have our licensees in it, more like a bazaar. And everybody helped pay for the space. And I'm thrilled that Lucasfilm still has its pavilion at San Diego Comic-Con every year. And It's something that fans look forward to.
Now, the one I met you at, there was the full-size X-Wing fighter.
Yep.
There. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Do you find that obviously collecting has changed because there's so much of it? Does Rancho Obi-Wan keep up with the deluge of things that come out, or do you have sort of like as new things come out, you kind of just put them in a storage somewhere, or do you focus more on unique collectibles?
I'm focusing more on unique collectibles. There are a couple of categories that I follow very closely. That one is action figures, although not as close as I used to when I used to go out and hit up all the stores for the exclusives, things of that nature. There's so many exclusives these days that I just don't have the time and the ability to keep track of that.
Right.
Lego is very important to me as Lego celebrates its 25th anniversary of Star Wars, the franchise that saved Lego and helped turn it into the world's largest toy company. And I love the Lego stuff. In fact, it's been about a year since we opened up a major display at Rancho Obi-Wan of Lego Star Wars pieces. And one of our docents, a guy named Mark Morita, built some amazing pieces that we have on display, along with the box pieces from Lego themselves. So it's great. I look at things like the Regal robot maquette replicas that they've been doing. I've gone crazy for those things. They are just amazing, and they're really picking up steam. They have a legacy edition of things that the people who actually sculpted these back for, mostly for Return of the Jedi and for Episode 1, who are doing sketches and signing plaques, and then they have a signed edition. So it's things like this which bring you close to the creation of the Star Wars movies that are really exciting to me and to a lot of other fans.
Yeah, we've had Tom on the show a couple times, and just the passion and love that goes into things that come out of Regal Robot is, I always tell people, you'll know that I won the lottery if you ever see the full-headed, the Tauntaun over here instead of my D1 droid, because that's the one that I want.
and we do have something from Regal Robot in our silent auction at the fundraiser as well. They donated a piece.
They donated a sold-out piece, so we're hoping that goes well.
That's great. And so the silent auction, once again, is, I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
No, I want the big Chewbacca if you'd like to. That's only $20,000 with the bowcaster.
Well, if I win the lottery, Steve, I will send you one. I'm saying it here now. I'm putting it on record.
Let me make it clear that I spend my own money on the collectibles. We use what we raise for the nonprofit for insurance, which in Northern California with the wildfires we've had over the last 4 or 5 years, the insurance has gone up 7-fold.
Wow.
For fire and theft and other kinds of insurance. We use it for maintenance. We use it for utilities. So
everything that's required to run a nonprofit.
Yeah, sure. Fantastic. Well, thank you both for giving us so much of your time. I know, and you have things to do to get this thing ready to go in just a couple short weeks. Again, go to ranchoobiwan.org to get your tickets if you're going to be in the Seattle area on October 5th.
Yep.
Or if you want to donate or become a member of Rancho Obi-Wan, which you can absolutely do. It's all there. Or if you want to take part in the silent auction, right? The virtual auction. Is it the virtual auction will be there?
You must be in attendance
okay.
The fundraiser to make bids.
Well, that's great. That's good to know. So you can see what's going to be there.
Stay tuned. This is going to be a big fundraising fall for us.
Excellent.
And we may have some news to break at the fundraiser too about the future of Rancho Obi-Wan. So we may be back with you in the not too distant future to talk
Always welcome.
Yeah.
Well, we will be here and very happy to talk to you at any time. And we really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight. And best of luck with everything. Steve, always great to see you. And it's been great to meet you. And best of luck with the fundraiser. And again, go to ranchoobiwan.org and become a member. of Rancho Obi-Wan and keep this amazing collection alive and going for the
Thanks,
future.
guys.
So
we appreciate your support.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank
so
y'all.
much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay.
And we'll be back with more ATG Live. And we are back with ATG Live, your Thursday night home for all things Star Wars. And you know, I loved being able to share that story with Steve because, again, like I don't think I shared that. The one I didn't talk about, which I didn't want to put him on the spot, was when I was there at Skywalker Ranch. There's a full story that goes with it, but the highlight of it, there's multiple highlights of it.
I know where this is going.
But Steve was walking me through it. Now, Skywalker Ranch was not in its current form. If you've been to Skywalker Ranch in the last, I guess, 10 years, maybe, I don't even know. I can't keep track of time. It's a different place. But I was in the main staircase area with Steve, and we had just walked by some props, and a voice comes from the top of the stairs and says, Steve. And I was like, who's that? Turn around. It's Rick McCullum. And because Steve was head of fan relations at the time. So I don't know what was going on. And so he came down, and I didn't hear what they were talking about, but it was classic Rick McCullum because it was fuck this and fuck that and this fucking guy and this fucking I mean, it was McCullum. And the best part, the highlight to me though, was after we were done, Rick turns to me and says, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Like I was somebody important. I was at as much a nobody as
no, man, we're good.
Imagine. It's fine, Mr. McCullum. That's fine. But yeah, so that was really wild. But it was so great to see him and to hear from Anne. And I screwed up some of those details. Go to ranchoobiwan.org. You'll get all the details you need about the event. And it sounds like it's going to be amazing.
It's so cool. And I pulled this up in the middle, but I didn't want to interrupt them. There's the Boba Fett guitar that they're talking about. The Fernandez. It's like one of those little Fernandez minis.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. It's clearly custom made. And I'm really fascinated, of course, because we've talked so much before about being musicians, seeing the other ones that they're going to have on display. I can't even imagine. Like I'll always picture when somebody says Star Wars guitar, it's either somebody's Stratocaster with stickers on it like mine is, or it's, the one that looks like the Millennium Falcon. I think it's a bass even. Just a big chunky, it weighs like 25 pounds. It's like, I don't care. It's the Millennium Falcon as a bass guitar. Like,
and every time that makes the rounds through social media as a bass player, you probably get it too. Your friends just send you a picture of it. And they're like, oh, the Rebel bass. I'm like, yep.
Yeah. We get it. We've been there.
But no, that was really great. But it wouldn't be a ATG Live if we didn't do a little bit of news for the week. And there are a handful of stories. So we want to hit them. And why don't we get to that? Well, interesting first story. Disney is facing a lawsuit over the use of Peter Cushing's likeness in Rogue One. I don't think anybody saw this one coming. In a developing story, London-based Tyburn Film Productions is suing Disney over the use of Peter Cushing's likeness in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. According to the Telegraph, Tyburn claims a contract made with Cushing before his death gave them the right to veto any recreations of his image through special effects. They argue Disney and Lucasfilm violated that agreement when Cushing's character Grand Moff Tarkin appeared in the 2016 film. Despite Disney securing approval from the Cushing estate, Tyburn maintains that its own contract with the actor dating back to 1977 takes precedence. The case will proceed to a full factual inquiry through a high court judge and has expressed doubts over the likelihood of success. This case comes amidst growing controversy over the use of visual effects and AI to recreate deceased actors, with similar scrutiny recently directed at Alien Romulus for its use of Ian Holmes' likeness. The issue is also central to the ongoing SAG-AFTRA, not Dr. Afra, SAG-AFTRA negotiations, as the ethics of this practice continue to be debated across Hollywood. Nick, any thoughts on this one?
It's very fascinating, and I listened as you sent me the story earlier this week and read through it. It feels like what they said. It seems unlikely that there's going to get a whole lot out of this, but it's also interesting to think Peter Cushing was giving his likeness to somebody else in the 70s. Like, that's a very now thing to do, because we have hologram Tupacs that show up, or we have whatever the thing is. But to have had that foresight feels a little fishy. Of course, I don't know all the details, but it does also bring up something that we have faced certainly several times in the Star Wars world, because we have not only Peter Cushing in Rogue One, but we have Carrie Fisher at the end. We know her family was involved. We have, and of course, Mark Hamill's still alive, but we have computer usages of Mark Hamill in Mandalorian. The one that feels very pressing or prescient right now is James Earl Jones died this week, and that voice is so iconic and central to a specific character. Now, there's been other actors, especially in animation. It hasn't been, this isn't an Anthony Daniels situation. It's not all James Earl Jones all the time. But also his estate has set up and has had an agreement for several years, if I understand correctly, with Lucasfilm, the ability to use that voice going forward for projects that may come up in ways that Darth Vader may be used. So it's a very modern thing, to have those agreements in place. It feels a little bit opportunistic from whoever this person is to also, because Rogue One has been out, what now? 8 years, 9 years. So I don't know. I can't speak to all the facts because I don't have all of them, but reading it and just kind of giving it the smell test, as it were, something feels a little stinky in this one.
But it definitely raises the questions, because I think you look at, the whole Mark Hamill situation. Obviously, Mark Hamill's still alive and on set and doing it, being actively a part of those recreations. But it just, it raises a bigger question, not just for Star Wars, but for the industry. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about, I used to be like, this is great, the technology is there, let's use it. But we have to be prepared for walking away from those original actors for various reasons, and let it take on a new life, I think.
And I wondered, is this one different because it's somebody's face, where James Earl Jones is a voice with a masked character? Does that have, is that a different way we approach this? Because, they could go in and make a whole new Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia movie, make it digital. And that feels like, but if we're doing that, I see what you're saying, and I don't really have the words to articulate it properly. I feel like a voice is different than a face likeness. Like, we're passing off a computer.
And I think it's different if the actor's alive, right? Like, so Robert Downey Jr. Being de-aged in the Iron Man movies,
or the active movies. Part of the project. Mark Hamill, same thing.
But again, if the permission's given by the estate, I guess you gotta run with it. So
it's a different thing.
Well, luckily, we don't have to decide what happens there. So, but let's get to our next story. Let's see here. What do I have? I think I have it here. Sorry for the delay, folks. Obi-Wan Kenobi has gotten his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Ewan McGregor received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame today in a ceremony featuring longtime friends and collaborators Mike Mills and Hayden Christensen. In a recent interview with Variety's Todd Gilchrist, McGregor reflected on his illustrious career, acknowledging his iconic role as Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars as a major turning point. And while McGregor has celebrated his career beyond the galaxy far, far away, he expressed his fondness for the character and hinted at a possible return to Obi-Wan in future projects. He shared memories of working alongside Alec Guinness's legacy, expressing his joy in capturing moments that felt reminiscent of Guinness's portrayal. Christensen, reflecting on their friendship, also recalled meeting McGregor for the first time on set in Australia, describing the actor's mentorship and ability to keep focus on the emotional core of their scenes. McGregor ended the interview with gratitude, humbly remarking on the significance of receiving a star on the Walk of Fame and how it might inspire others in the industry who he feels deserving of the accolade. Interesting. We just were talking about Peter Cushing being replaced digitally. They obviously, Alec Guinness could never play a 18-year-old Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
But here's a situation where not only did it work, he is Obi-Wan Kenobi for many people. So Nick, any comments on that?
First, that was my immediate first thought. I watched Hayden's speech. Somebody put the clip of it, 5.5 minutes. He did a great job. Obviously, it's very clear that those two are friends, love each other dearly, and I admire that so much.
Yep.
But when I was watching that, and when he kind of transitions to the Star Wars part of it, and Hayden himself says, he is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you see Ewan McGregor light up, and you see him kind of, his chest puffs out with pride, and he beams a little bit. And I mean, you and I both grew up with Alec Guinness. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor wasn't a thing until 1999.
Right.
But if if I'm playing word association and you say Ewan McGregor, I'm right there at saying Obi-Wan Kenobi, right next to a couple of other just key things as an actor. I think on the Hollywood star part, he's absolutely deserving of this. He has done so many different things. My wife loves Moulin Rouge. It's one of her favorite movies. We watch it, at least once a year. One of my favorite movies of all time that he is in is a movie called Big Fish. If anybody is watching this podcast, if you've never seen the movie Big Fish, please go watch it. It's a Tim Burton movie. It's Ewan McGregor. It's Steve Buscemi.
And it's co-starring Nick Nolte, isn't it?
And I am an extra in that movie. That's not why it's so great. It is truly a fantastic movie. And it was shot here in Alabama where I live. But it's such a fun story. It's really clever. It's very Tim Burton in such the best way. But there's also, if you've never watched it I think it's on Apple TV still, the Long Way series. Ewan McGregor and his best friend ride motorcycles literally around the world. And it's this real life reality. There's like 3 or 4 of them. They go from like South America to LA, on electric motorcycles is the newer one. They're apparently planning another season, which I'm pumped about. But it gives you insight into who he is as a human being, not just the actor.
Yeah.
And he's seems to be every bit as good a dude as we want him to be. Like you want to hang out with Ewan McGregor and have a beer and have him say, holy shit, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, like he does in that video of the guy at the stoplight. He's totally deserving, and the love between him and Hayden is beautiful. They're friends who went through a bunch of stuff making those movies and really connected. So couldn't be more deserving in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's interesting because again, we have now lived through, and I've been seeing a lot of memes of it lately because of the Acolyte and things like that. We've gone through the prequels and we've gone through that sort of thing. And let's be honest, people did not love those movies. And that is probably part of the thing that brought them closer together. And I say they did not love those movies when they first came out. I know that the world has changed there dramatically. I've clearly I've come around and love those movies as well. But Ewan McGregor,
but
is
they
funny.
Went through it together.
Correct. Right. So they've gone through that ringer, and they'll be sort of tied to that forever.
And they've gotten to come back around. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but like seeing the stuff at Celebration Europe that we didn't get to go to last year, the year before, Hayden being out on stage, we heard about it at Anaheim because Kenobi had come out, and Ewan comes out there then and says, we're doing this. He even said himself, I was turned off for a while, but the outpouring of fans that said, we want you back. We want more. Like that's what brought him back to this and brought him back to this character. And you can tell everything that's happened since the first season of Kenobi came out. He's amped and totally down for it. If they called him tomorrow, he'd do it. And here's my hot take. If we're doing hot takes tonight, we get an Obi-Wan season 2 before we get an Acolyte, before we I think we're closer to that than we are anything else new. Like I think that's in the works. That's my underlying theory.
You know what? I don't disagree with you at all. And I think it's more than possible. I think again, it's very similar to anytime any one of these actors has said, no, I'd be open to it, but nothing's happening. I think they'll get there, and I think
Well,
honestly,
and I think what we've seen lately with the Acolyte, which was brand new content all the way around.
yeah,
An era nobody really know. I mean, an era not a lot of people really. Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, that character, that actor is the great equalizer. It's the one that even if you didn't super love the first Obi-Wan Kenobi series, it has the ability to be the most accessible, user-friendly, money-making opportunity for Disney Star Wars to say, this is where we're going to direct some dollars. And it's gonna get, everything gets crapped on. It doesn't matter what it is. You can make the most perfect, Quentin Tarantino murder stormtrooper movie that everybody thinks they want.
No,
there's still going to be something wrong with it, and nobody wants that. But my point is, I think this has, the potential for a second Obi-Wan Kenobi series is the safest money that I think Disney could spend here in a not too distant future.
I would love to see it, and clearly he's up for it. So, well, speaking of series, let's get to our last news story of the night, and that is that Ahsoka won its first Emmy. The Star Wars series Ahsoka secured its first Emmy win at the Creative Arts Emmy Awards on Sunday, taking home the award for Outstanding Fantasy Sci-Fi Costumes. The award was specifically given for the episode Part 8, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, a fan favorite installment of the 2023 Disney Plus series. The award, however, is bittersweet as it was awarded posthumously to Shauna Turpic, who sadly passed away last year. The competition for the costume design honor was fierce, with Ahsoka beating out nominees Echo for Lowhawk, Fallout for The End, Loki for 1893, and What We Do in the Shadows for Pride Parade. In addition to this win, Ahsoka earned 5 total nominations at the event, including nods for Outstanding Special Visual Effects, Outstanding Hairstyle, Outstanding Prosthetic Makeup, and Outstanding Sound Editing. Though it didn't win in these categories, the recognition highlights the show's excellence in technical achievements and creativity. The victory adds to the growing legacy of this show. We've talked about it before, Nick, when our favorite TV shows have gotten Emmy appreciation, Emmy nods, Emmy awards. And what does it all mean? And I think the timing is important because of where Disney Star Wars on television is right now. I think there's often an issue where we talk about the quality of the shows, and this is, Emmys are not, it's not fan based. It's not, it's people, especially especially in this creative category, right? These are their fellow creatives making this sort of recognition. Nick, what does it mean for not just Ahsoka and of course Shauna Turpic, who will be greatly missed? I mean, the Ahsoka costuming was amazing. The detail, the way she captured some of the classic animated pieces. But Nick, what do you think this means, especially at this time in quote unquote Disney Star Wars?
Recognition is a good thing. I mean, to see, you're pushing shows, you're spending money to create shows. You still have to test things out. You still have to figure out which shows work, which shows don't work, which shows did we spend a lot of money on that didn't get the views. Doesn't mean they're a bad show. Doesn't mean it's bad content. It means this is a business. And this means that when we spend this money, where do we get recognition? If Disney's getting recognition, even in technical things like costuming and hair and makeup and effects, that gets attention. And that gets attention from the people who have control of the purse strings. So I think that it bodes well for when a conversation is had about, are we really going to do a second season of Ahsoka? There's going to be somebody, and there's going to be a plus in the pro and con category that says, we did get some awards, we did get some nominations, and they're deserving too. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, sure.
But, and you talked about Shauna, she's worked on multiple Star Wars shows over the years. She worked on Kenobi. I'm pretty sure she did the stuff for Andor, and the costumes in Andor in particular. You've got Mon Mothma in, not Bespin, Coruscant, political finery and hosting a thing at the costumes are as important to Star Wars as the John Williams music is, as the Ben Burtt sound effects are, because it's not believable if you're wearing big shoulder pads and you look like David Hasselhoff in that one weird movie from the 80s. It's got to be believable, and it's that lived in thing. And, that craft being recognized is important. So I think it's all wins, and I think it bodes well for when they make decisions about what shows are they going to do, they're going to focus on who are our good creators, who are our good, people that drive this.
Yeah. Yep. No, and I think you're right. And I also think it's important to recognize that they're putting that same sort of effort into television that they do in the movies. And I think that all comes together. So that's really great. Well, that is all we have for the news tonight. Want to just remind everybody, we have this new feature on our YouTube channel. You can send in super chats now. You can join our membership, so you can get cute little icons that you can when we do our toast, you can use your little blue milk icon in the chat, and we'll be on the lookout for that. But so if you're interested in that, we would love to have you do that. But we are so happy that you all joined us tonight, and thank you to Steve and Ann from the Rancho Obi-Wan organization. Again, I had the opportunity to go there when it was literally still one chicken barn, and it was again, a Star Wars experience. It's funny, people always ask, and you probably get this as well, especially when we do other podcasts, they always ask us, what's your favorite Star Wars experience, and that's sort of their favorite Star Wars memories, and mine are tied to Steve and tied to Rancho Obi-Wan, and so the opportunity to talk to him. I mean, again, I honestly can't tell you. The funny part about the story that I didn't mention was I was literally, because I was 96, so I was, when I called Lucasfilm, and they put me on hold. I was on hold for a long time. Sure. I was literally laying on the floor looking at my Star Wars books, and he gets on, and that book is sitting there in front of me. But if you are not a member of Rancho Obi-Wan, please consider doing it. As Steve said, the insurance prices are through the roof. Keeping that place alive and well is not an inexpensive task. So if you can, and if you're interested, please consider that. And Nick, next week we are going to be joined by Rick Shue from Left Wing, or Left. Was it Left Crew, not Left Wing? I was thinking West Wing, Left Crew Politics.
That's right.
Yeah,
there it is. That was for Matt. That was for Matt, and Pete said it before I did.
And he has also got a great podcast called Friends from Work, Let's Chat. And he's going to bring a really fun and interesting perspective. We're going to probably talk a little politics, not too deep, but just sort of talk about the politics of Star Wars and the fandom and where we are right now with all that stuff. There's the West Wing hat.
There we go. That's right. Now we're ready.
Nick, anything you want to add? Did I miss anything this week?
I think you nailed it. And thank you to everybody for tuning in, hanging out with us tonight. Folks in the YouTube chat, thank you for being here. Check out the membership part. We would love to have you, check that out with us. Also, to everybody watching on Twitter, we have a whole bunch of people watching on Twitter tonight. Twitter's a weirder thing, being able to comment. You have to open it up on a browser, I think is what we figured out.
Yeah.
So if you're watching on mobile, we're so thankful you're here. If you ever want to jump in, get your comments on the screen, be a part of the conversation, we'd love for you to join us on YouTube, or just open up your Twitter in an actual, internet browser so you can comment. Your opinions are important too. We'd love to hear from you. But thanks to everybody who hangs out and watches. We love doing this. We do it for fun. And it's just, the best way to spend a Thursday night, in my opinion.
Yep. And you know what, Nick, I'm going to say it. There's so much drama among creators right now. I hope people have noticed we have tried to stay out of it for the first time, and it feels good to stay out of it. Let it all go down. And if you're looking for just a fun place to hang out on Thursday night and talk about Star Wars, we're your guys. So please join us next week. We'll be joined by Rick Shue. The podcast is back. So listen, check that out on wherever you're getting podcasts. Look for Around the Galaxy. We are we're bringing in a bunch of different guests, and we're bringing back some of the ones that we've had over the last couple months, which you may have missed. So make sure to check that out. And Nick, may the force be with you
always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend, time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.